Welcome and good evening to Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. This is Raph streaming to you live high above the keep in the hot air balloon. Tonight, as always, I have Neindorf with me. Neindorf, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm ready to talk about some charts.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And we have a very special first-time guest, Trade Room, on the podcast. Trade Room, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. And we got a knight. We got a Sir Worm lurking in the back room. Worm, are you there? Or are you just hanging? All right, Worm's just hanging right now. So we'll we'll move forward. Um, let's start with our our customary intros. Neindorf, what's new in the Neindorf household right now?
We're kind of getting into that holiday prep where the Christmas swing is in full bore. I feel like there's always Christmas music on. I'm almost ready to be done with it already.
Oh, I'm leaning in with the Christmas spirit. We got elves doing stuff at our house. We got ornaments being made, cookies being baked, music on at all times. Um, Polar Express that we went to. We could talk about another
Yes.
time. And I'm working on a secret project, but
Ooh.
with the Gen ones lurking around, I can't say. Uh, I'll have to divulge more another time. So, trade room. How about you? Anything you're doing to prep for the holiday season?
Well, you know, we are working on the tree. That's the first deed. Once we get the tree, everything else is going to come in place. We're a little bit late
All right,
with the tree, but we're going to leave it up all of January,
there you
maybe
go.
February.
Oh,
Do
absolutely.
you go real tree or real like tree?
Well, when I was young, we went fake tree,
Uh-huh.
and I have never had a tree since the age of 25 and older. So this would be my first tiny tree. So it'll be a real tree.
Okay, good, good. We had been doing real trees for a while, and then we switched to the fake trees just because of all the needles. But I kind of want to go back to the real trees. I love the smell. If you can keep them hydrated,
Yeah, well, I'll get a chance to see what that's about for the first time.
good, good. All right. Well, let's do a quick intro. Trade room. I've had the pleasure of being on a couple of sergeants podcasts with you in the past. But outside of that, and catching a couple of your streams, I know you're a trade guy. But tell us a little more. Who are you? What do you do outside of DeFi Kingdoms, and then what do you do inside DeFi Kingdoms?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thanks a ton for having me. Right as the intro of the stream started and the music got jamming, I just couldn't help but move my body. And it's so crazy that in a lot of the content creators and even in the DeFi Kingdoms team itself, the music is just outstanding, right? Let alone the content. On top of that, I gotta tell you, my first ever Dread Knight that I summoned, I used the ADFK tool
Love it.
to get
Yes.
there, right? Before I was shooting bullets and blanks at nothing. And with that combination of the ADFK tool, even if I know there's a 7% or 3% chance, I can still utilize that data and those probabilities to my advantage when I have the visual representation. So can't speak enough about how useful ADFK is. But, you know, moving on to me, I mean, I made a recent, tweet, because I can talk about a lot of things, but I am a U.S. citizen, born and raised in the third world, now second world ascending country. Um, you know, Came into this country and realized how much opportunity is here. And with the development of the stock market and the equities, I wanted to win. And in order to win, I needed to find out how economics works, how money works, how geopolitics work, how market psychology works, how patterns and charts work. I didn't just want to, buy a bag and watch it go up only. I want to know it all, right? And so that's what got me into this whole investing space. And, my name is the Trade Room, which is a play off of Trading View, the application, and then the Shade Room, which is just a social media platform that is in tune with like hip hop and the news. But really, I'm a macro investor, right? I do a macro podcast every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the Trade Room about the macro picture, but without these tools that I have, like the charts, when it comes to DFK, like the ADFK application and the website. Without the charts, it's you can be lost. Or I felt lost. So having some data in front of me, having some probability in front of me, having some percentages in front of me, and having a basic understanding, I'd say maybe a little bit higher than basic understanding of macroeconomic policy. That's who I am, right? That's the trade room. That's the macro guy. And sharing those thoughts, especially the market psychology end of things, along with the charts, which the charts price in everything. That's me. Right now, I work in IT, and I've been in IT for 2 years now, and that's only solidified my bullishness on blockchain, crypto, and even blockchain gaming and where that's going.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, it's I would say I'm fascinated by the intersection of economics and psychology, where you're trying to estimate what other people could do in the market. How are they going to move? How do you zig when they're going to zag? But I can't say um, I'm I'm any good at it. I pretend to be a trader on the side, and really just a DeFi Kingdoms maxi at heart. So while you mentioned you appreciate having the ADFK tools for analyzing DeFi Kingdom space, I appreciate having the resources like your podcast for trying to better understand what's going on in the trading space. I think that's a great help to all of us. So uh, as Neindorf and I have kind of reset our goals for the podcast a few weeks ago, we wanted to go through what's most important to us, and it's having fun, it's sharing in the community, uh, it's learning something every day. If this project went away tomorrow, we could at least walk away saying, hey, we learned something. That's fantastic. And of course, the the profit aspect as well. And while we all know this podcast is not financial advice and filled with lots of reckless speculation, I'm kind of hoping we can address all four of those in kind of one segment here with the jewel pumping. Neindorf, it's been kind of a fun and wild ride the last couple weeks. It really started to feel a little bit like a year and a half ago, with the price action actually going on. It's paying attention to the charts. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, so we were talking about this, and I think right before this pump started to happen, or maybe right as it was beginning, I had, made a couple moves to pull out of the gardens, and I didn't want that impermanent loss crushing me. And I was like, you know what, I got to park this somewhere. So I tucked it in the jeweler. I did not realize A, how the returns aren't very great, and B, when there's a giant pump and you can't uh, basically get your access to your tokens, you kind of have FOMO for a different reason. It's like I didn't have fear of not being able to buy Jewel. I had fear of not being able to sell Jewel. But turns out I'm happy that I kind of just got to sit back and watch, and didn't have to stress out over it because the choice was already made, right? It was locked.
Yeah. And when it started moving, was it about a week ago now? Um, or a
I want to
little
say it was
less,
Saturday,
little
a
less
week ago
than.
Saturday.
Yeah. So it started kind of moving, and we had been messaging. I can't remember what day it was, but we decided it was probably even a week and a half ago now, and we decided to pull out of the garden position and really stock up and load up on Jewel. And I feel like kind of stepping back 2 steps, that was even more important position. Why did we even do that? Was that just beyond kind of Trade Room's probably going to be shaking his head at us here? Was that like just kind of gut feeling? We were just like, hey, I think the market's going to move right now. Let's go. Let's get into Jewel. And then we just kind of we loaded, unloaded everything else and just loaded up into the Jewel bags.
For me personally, it was yeah, I had a lot of pretty much all of mine was in Jewel E, and ETH had at that moment, and it's still now, had a fairly decent recovery from where it had been in the last year. And as Jewel even moved up to 15, which if you think you got to remember back, 7 cents wasn't that long ago. So it was up to 15. And I was like, well, I was thinking about this. I'm like, the odds of ETH doubling in value could happen, but it's probably like that might be the next, peak of the next bull, maybe for all we know. And I was like thinking to myself, like, what could the peak of the next bull for Jewel be? I'm like, oh, that could be multiple dollars. So I was like, I can't you know, basically, I'm okay if my jewel turns into ETH or vice versa because I believe in both of them. But just it seems so lopsided to me in terms of what the growth potential was that was kind of what led me to be like, I gotta lock it in jewel.
I love it. Love it. Trade room. What kind of position do you have in Joule right now outside of kind of what you're doing in the macro environment? What are you doing in the as it relates to DeFi kingdoms?
Yeah, so I will encapsulate that question with I put out a recent tweet that Jewel is the BTC of the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem.
Oh,
Love
And
that.
BTC is what is the king of the entire crypto ecosystem. It's a leading indicator. I do not own any Bitcoin, but I love charting it. Why? Because I know the correlations and discorrelations between Bitcoin's price action, the bull market, the Bitcoin halving, and the effects it has on the general crypto market. What we see is Bitcoin's parabolic runs, Bitcoin's cool offs, and then the cool offs allow, when it's a bull market, the altcoins to then make their moves. You have ones that make moves early, you have ones that make move mid cycle, you have ones that make move late cycle, like your XRPs and your Cardanos. And so I look at the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem as very juxtaposed to the overall crypto ecosystem. I look at Jewel as the Bitcoin of the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem. Crystal is the Ethereum of the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem.
Ah,
And
yeah.
then you have everybody else.
mm-hmm.
And what happens is the Crystal and Jewel are the early movers. You're gonna have those individuals, and then you're gonna have those laggards, and then you're gonna have a couple meme coins, right? And so that's what we're looking at for me in a DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem, and I'm structuring my positions to be of that manner. That is why when Jewel started moving, well, I've already been in an accumulation phase. I was selling while others were saying, don't sell. Now, my sales are practice. They're practice for what? They're practice for the top of the market. Because the painful lessons that many learned in the previous bull market is not knowing when to buy, when to sell. And so when we start these early stages, I'm using 5 to 10% of my allocation as practice. And in this first run, we ran to as high as 74, 78. I sold some Jewel at 39, 40, and then 60. And there was some great lessons learned from that practice. I'm gonna go back to the gym like Michael Jordan,
Hmm.
and we're gonna see what happened and how I did. I was not able. I missed the top by 15 cents, and we'll probably get a chance to talk about some of that today. But again, I put out a stream. What does it feel like when you are selling and everybody's screaming buy?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that tremendously this weekend, and it's just that preparation for what's to come.
I love that, and like you said, I love that kind of phrase of practice and get back in the gym, learn from what we've done, and I hope that's a lesson that everyone in this ecosystem is taking, even the maxis, as that there's a lot of people that I saw not taking any of the profits during a couple of years ago during our first two bull runs with Jewel, and that's one that I think I kind of lucked into based on a few in real life situations that I had of, oh hey, I need some money at this time, and that turned out to be a great time to sell, and so I'm trying to go about it with a little more of a scientific approach this time. My strategy during this run is I was kind of worried with some of the volatility, and again, it's not a lot of this is based on science here, but I was a little worried as we were getting to that top of that run that we were going to start to see the market, retrace and regress to something less. And what I decided to do was pull out about half of my stack in Jewel, um, and then put that into the gardens and split that with USDC and with Jewel. The USDC to kind of stabilize some of the portfolio that I had. And then obviously the Jewel, I still wanted that in there. And it was earning crystal. And I really like that kind of that perspective of earning crystal. And if there's going to be a lot of action with Jewel USDC, there's a chance for that garden to reap some of those transaction rewards. And so that was the choice I made. I was kind of sweating it as we started getting a few green candles. Like, oh no, what did I do? What if Jewel jumps up to $1.25, $1.50? Did I just throw away a ton of my profit opportunity? But it ended up doing all right. And I don't know, maybe it insulated me from the losses. I don't necessarily having done that. I don't really love the garden rewards right now. They're not what they used to be. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts on? I asked you pre-stream. Neindorf decided to lock his up so he doesn't touch it. I decided to put mine in the gardens. Give us a letter grade on how you think we're doing right now.
No, I think I mean, locking it up in a jeweler's is never a bad idea. Recently saw a snapshot of, I forget who it is, but it's an individual who locked up about 5,000 jewel in the Serendale 2.0 area when that first opened, and at the current moment he has over 1,100. And on a big pump like this, that's free money, right? So locking it up is never a bad idea. Everybody has their own choice on how long they want to lock it up. I had my Serendale 2.0 garden jewelers after locking it up for I think a year or change. It unlocked, and so that's beautiful. During this pump, my one of my the 1,000 uh, jewel that I sold was from an unlock that was from a previous time where it was above my buy range. And so the jewel is not a bad idea. You going into the gardens, I absolutely love. And how you caught the top, maybe
I had
psychologically, you
50. It was at 59 cents, so I didn't.
59.
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't catch the top. I'm not a savant.
Okay, so not bad, not bad. We're going to talk about some of these indicators, maybe that will give us some better purview of what certain supports and resistances look like. But I love the gardens. I left it for some odd reason about 3 months ago, 2 months ago, but I've gone back in it not only on the Crystal Vale end of things, but superbly on the Serendale 2.0
Mm.
version of things because I'm on an aggressive jade accumulation, right? So if I was going to sell some jewel, right, I wanted to then reaccumulate into jade because remember that theory of the early movers, the mid movers, and the late movers. I believe jade is going to be an incredible late mover, and the APRs are higher there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And even Clayton, the Clayton token, the Clayton blockchain has yet to make some of those moves that we see AVAX making, and that we see Jewel making as well. So I have a minor basis in terms of the heroes. I have a gold and yellow pet egg bias in terms of that, and then now I have a Serendale 2.0 bias, especially with Jade and the Clayton token. But I love the Gardens theory. I love that some of that went into USDC or USDT, depending on what or OUSD or whatever that is, in Serendale 2.0, because again, if you're taking some profit, maybe you're reallocating back into this game. But if you are reverting to USDT every single time you take profit or US dollar, by the time you get to the end of the bull run, you should have a pretty healthy stack of USD there and still plenty of assets within the game to do what you have to do and leveraging yourself with the easiest protective mechanism within crypto as we get into these euphoric parabolic phases. So I like what you're both doing.
Well, thank you for the advice. I feel like we're in a good shape, in good hands here. So I appreciate that. Would you mind sharing your screen for a little while and help us? I mean, don't give us it's we don't have enough time for a 101 on charts, but what are you looking at? Give us kind of a little bit of a preview, and then also again, let's shout out your stream and where can we find more of this content?
Yeah, for sure. Let me go ahead and
Go ahead and share
um,
the podcast channel.
the podcast channel. Okay. Let's go and do that. Let me. So I recently got a new computer here, or a new setup, and put my Discord on. So let's see if I am good enough of a troubleshooter to get this to get this pulled up. Let's see here.
All right, I'll switch back to game screen
Yeah,
here. You let me know when you're ready to go. So
yeah, for sure.
Neindorf, we'll talk about some of the things that we're learning as well. And
Sure.
one of the things that we're working on and talking about kind of in the background, I think kind of speaking of late movers, I think heroes are going to be a late mover. And we've been having a lot of conversations in the background of how do you know what hero is going to be a good hero. So why don't you talk through? I'm going to I'm going to share one of my screens here, and then why don't you talk through some of what you're working on the development side?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we're trying to get to is, we've always been hero data has kind of been our deal. And there's some now that we've got so many heroes and we've got very specialized builds, I'll say, like what I'm noticing in these boar hunts is I've got varying degrees of priests that have leveled up, to say 12 or so, very different ways. And they're usable in different fashions because of that. And so I think that's kind of what led me to basically want to add more information to the hero data page where you can kind of see the normal, the box plots, right? Where it's there's basically the quartiles of, of all the stats on a hero. So if you type in your hero's ID, you could be able to see, hey, look, this is a warrior. His strength statistic, is judging by this plot, it looks like he's in the top, you know, 20% of strength. And you can see this for all the stats, including mana and HP as well. It's like that's kind of where I'm at. I want to get, population information now. Now that we've got, we've ironed out the hero specific genetics, year ago or more. So we've got that nailed down. But now let's kind of start getting into some of the population based information. So I think that's something that you're going to see us adding to our hero data page in the near future. And I think that's got me excited right now. I've kind of switched gears to work on that. And honestly, one of the reasons I just wanted is I got to look through my wallet and figure out who's got to go. Some of these heroes have not leveled up well, but it's hard to see. So that's kind of what I've been up to.
I'm struggling to bring up my Power BI page, but just like you're saying, how do we look at hero charts and the
Yes.
stats that we're getting for those heroes? And so I'll pop up a screenshot of what I'm looking up on screen. And I shared this in the Discord chat. So I've been playing with some charts in Power BI, and what I'm looking at here is the scatter plot and looking at luck and the different classes and where they're doing. And right now I have everything organized by level 15, because it's so relevant. Seeing what your stats are for your level is pretty important. And I feel like any time that you can start to mark out or stake out any heroes above that third quartile, you're in great shape. I feel like you're going to be supremely advantaged as long as that's one of the hero's base or primary stats. And so if you look at a thief, for example, their base stats or their primary stats with them. And when I say primary stats, to me, it's not the highest growth rates. It's what are the moves in game built around. And we know that for thieves, it's luck, it's dexterity, and it's strength, actually, surprisingly enough. And so having luck there is I'm a bit of a luck maxi, and I'm trying to build some really big monsters eventually with some greater stones. But yeah, I'm proud that I have one of those luck guys up there above that third quartile right now. So that's something that I've been trying to take a look at. And
That's
I'm
pretty
really
cool. Is this pulled from the database I've scraped over the weekend?
yeah, this is pulled from the database that you scraped over the weekend, and then we're trying to make sure that I'm trying to figure out a way to share this. I don't have a good way of doing that, and the thing that you're working on building, and this is going to be one of our subscriber features, is letting users see where when they're bringing up their hero where they fall inside that entire range, and so you can kind of track them over the course of the life of the hero. So I'm really excited for that feature. I feel like that's the next phase of the game. We've been building these monsters. Now we need to know how they stack up. And it's not just when you summon the monsters. That's only half the battle. You got to get good level ups too.
Oh yeah, I see. Sir Worm in YouTube chat saying basically, are we trying to recreate the .s formulas from in the combat? Um, I would say not exactly. Those. So on Wednesday, I think we're gonna have Hubert on, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So we plan to hit those pretty hard then. But I think those I'm struggling to understand those a little bit. I know they're supposed to have some sort of balancing effect, but I found the spreadsheet where the DFK team released how those .s formulas are calculated, and essentially there's no population information directly pulled from it. It's just a static formula. So what we're talking for these charts is the current live hero population, um, and here's the stats for that. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we will also probably render the .s information in the future too. Um, but that's kind of more of a combat focus. We're kind of with these charts, we're more focused on stat growth and where your stats align with the live hero population.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, so let me start sharing our Discord screen again, and we got you up on screen here, Trade Room. Um,
Awesome.
Walk us through what are we looking at here?
Yeah, for sure. Before we dive in, I love the new additions coming to the ADFK platform. Talking about looking at your heroes and possibly looking to trim some of your heroes, the ones that maybe not leveling up well, things of that area. Being able to figure out what your cream within the crop is, not only within your own portfolio, but in comparison to others, is going to be critical, right? Because I may, as hero prices rise, want to trim some of my laggards that somebody else may find more value in using, right? So that's pretty awesome. I'm excited to see that come out.
Awesome.
Um, so I look at everything macro. So we look at everything in a macro sense. And so what are we looking at for Jewel in a macro sense? And then we'll dive into some of the short frame time movements
Mm-hmm.
and encapsulate everything off with why I sold at the levels I sold, and then what we have looking at coming with Jewel.
Love this.
And so I love charts. Why? Because it is historia, right? You're getting history. And the longer history you have, the higher probability that your macro projections could possibly come to fruition. And so, we look at DFK's history from the early stages. We see that on the weekly chart, we had about 20 weeks of just positive price action, which was a total of a 27,986% run, right? So if you were an individual who was buying in these areas during the bull market, you were not too mad about having a missing the first bit of this run and catching the rest of the run that was left, which even at this stage was another 200%. So this is the thing about getting in these early stages as an early holder. As the percentages rise higher, there's less return to be garnered. And so with that history, we know that the market sentiment for those who caught in this area, very, very bearish, very, very negative. They were not happy at all. And of course, they wouldn't be happy. Why? Because if you're buying at the top here, you just went through, okay, a 77-day 81% dive, retraced a little bit, maybe you bought some more here, and then you went to through absolute dread of a
Mm-hmm.
99% correction, which lasted for 168 days. And actually, it continued to last all the way till recent price action. We have 560 days of a 99%. Of course, the sentiment is going to be negative. And so when you have these instances, what are we looking at? Right? We've gone down bearish. This is where everyone, including Mr. Slowmad, was pretty bearish on the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem. I can't blame him. What do you have here? Well, you have from this large uprise, this was the lowest price that Jewel ever was, which is 0.0094. Bless whoever sold was able to pick it up there because they never were out of profit. They were never in the negative. And I think Frisky Fox or Dreamer might have mentioned one of their friends or something that bought at that level. But all in all, since we had that 99% correction, which had a low in 2022, we had some bullish price action, okay, where we went 161 days, 202%. And everyone was ecstatic, all right, at the late end of December of 2022 because we were like, oh man, we are off to the races. And then what happened from there? Well, what happened from there is we got taught a good lesson about bull markets and bear market because that was a possible bear market rally that brought us down into a 200 another 252 day another 80% correction. So at this phase, we have been through three major 80 plus percent corrections over three major long time periods, and the market was furious. And so at this stage, what was the thing that we were looking at? We were looking at Bitcoin bottoming at that January, at that June of 2022. We were looking at Jewel forming lower prices. And to me, I said, well, I love this ecosystem and I love chilling here, but nothing about Jewel impresses me. Nothing about AVAX impresses me. There are some certain things that we need to see. And what we spoke about initially, as we had this period where the whale was selling, was let's try to find some macro patterns. It is never bullish to have lower lows. I repeat, it is never bullish to have lower lows.
Right.
Okay? So, on the macro sense, yeah, of course, everybody on crypto Twitter is going to shit on us because they're not seeing positive price action. But within the trade room, okay, we are not traders. We are macro investors. We look for macro patterns. We look for economic hardening. We look for economic softening. And in the instance of high interest rates, new war, and global economic hardship, of course, risk assets are going to go down much harder. So even if as Bitcoin was correcting, risk assets within the crypto ecosystem, like game tokens and GameFi and low market cap tokens, are going to suffer. And so what we decided that we wanted to track and what we were seeing starting to form was a possible head and shoulders. And at the moment where we had a 91% run from this possible head and shoulders we were tracking, we noticed something called bullish divergence. Okay. And what is bullish divergence? Bullish divergence is when price is going down, but the RSI is going up. All right. I repeat, what is bullish divergence? Bullish divergence is when price action is going down, but RSI, which is relative strength index, is going up. And so even though we were zigzagging in this nature and created not only this low in 2022, a new low and another low as the whale was selling, we saw the market buying up Jewel. And we saw two bounces that were a higher low. And when you get price action down, RSI up, that is an indicator of a possible bullish divergence. And when you look and use longer time frames, this is a 3-day chart and also looking at the weekly chart, this is an indicator of a possible what? A possible bullish divergence, a macro bullish divergence within an inverse head and shoulders. And my golly, that is a powerful macro pattern. We watched it over and this is all 3-day candles. So you're looking at least 3 weeks here where we nervously watched this action from the head and shoulders. And what do you normally see from a inverse head and shoulders, which is the opposite of a head and shoulders? You see a move to the neckline of the head and shoulders, which is over here. Okay, also the neckline could have been over here as well, but you see a move to the neckline, and that's where you get a confirmation. And so if I go a little granular, okay, we go to the daily chart, or I can even go to the 4-hour chart. As we were watching this head and shoulders, we saw a move to the neckline of the head and shoulders. All right, and this is where we got the biggest impulse. If I can stop chicken scratching this thing, we saw a move from that head and shoulders, and we did not even see a test of this neckline. My goodness, there was no test
blew right
of
by
this
it.
neckline. It just blew right by it. And when you look at the daily chart, and before I switch over to the daily chart, we can see here, for the longest time, I had 1775 as that area that the inverse head and shoulders, a powerful inverse head and shoulders, could exit out of. And what confirms a bull market for Jewel is this 29-cent area. Why does that confirm a bull market for Jewel? Well, when we squeezed this price action in here, we see this 29.30 cent area was the last place we ran to. So support and resistance. We have to test that resistance. We have to turn it into support. Not only that, but in the history of Jewel, there was a confluence area here. Remember that 17-cent area that I spoke about? This is why that 17-cent area was important, because in the price of history, that was the first place that needed to find a support and resistance. And once we broke out of this area, we ran past this 29-cent area that was former resistance that needed to turn to support back in the bull market. I have this 75-cent area, and I have this 94-cent area. For the 75-cent area, if I zoom in a little bit more granular into the 4-hour, and it starts to get a little bit annoying when you zoom in and try to find your general area. But I hope I'm not, taking too much time
This is
No, this
awesome.
is
getting this
great.
down. But we need to look at history. When you look at the history of the DeFi Kingdoms Jewel token, you see the 75-cent area was what? The next area where we had some resistance here that needed to eventually turn into support. But for me, this 75-cent area was the area. That was the area from our first parabolic impulse leaving that inverse head and shoulder that I was like, at this point I'm selling that 10% of allocation that I was looking to sell. What happened, and we'll talk about that, is I was befuddled that we did not face a rejection here at 28. I was befuddled that we didn't face another one here at 52, which is where I sold again just because of this large wick that we had here. But all and behold, when I squeeze this 4-hour chart in, this is why the 75-cent area was to me that area, because look at this area too on the way down. We had this general area where in May of 2022, especially after the FTX debacle, not only did we bounce off of this area and try to go to that $2.01 area or 218 area in the bear market. Again, in bear markets, you have bear market rallies. The fact that we got a bounce here let me know that this area of confluence is a major area. So again, when it gets to $1.30 on the next push, guess who's going to consider selling another 10% allocation? It's going to be this guy, right? But when you look at the 75-cent area, we recently had this major rejection because look at all of this smuggish confluence at this 75-cent area with this history that we have here. And when we come over here, lo and behold, in the most current price action, where did we get a major rejection after parabolic price movement? First of all, this price movement was magnanimous, right? This price action here from the lows, if I can touch this perfectly, was, oh, I hate when it crosses like this, was a 737% move, okay? Where did the trade room sell his small allocation? We sold at 36, an area of confluence. We sold at 43, an area of confluence. We sold at the area of confluence, and we missed this area. Again, like I said in my tweet, we missed it by 25%. Okay, I don't care about 25% if we had a total of a 700% run. But with the smaller sales, I did miss out on a little bit. And so, what's the overall lesson? The overall lesson with Jewel is that it's been a sleeping giant for over 2 years. It has the mechanisms of an ecosystem that's built to last for a couple of decades. And it's the best of all of crypto. And so when you get these parabolic movements, we're going to play it, at least in the trade room, to the very top of those movements. And so on the next impulse for me, my 10% allocation is not being sold until about $1.30. And again, it's a small allocation in order for me to do things like put USDC aside and other things of that nature. To this 90-cent area from our current position, that's 115%. And to this 99 area, that is 196%. So overall, just looking at the overall picture here for Jewel, I'm convinced we're out of this little bearish trend. Inverse head and shoulder is played out. Inverse head and shoulder, this is my original thought process with the inverse head and shoulder. An inverse head and shoulder, and we have to understand there are patterns within patterns, right? This inverse head and shoulder with this correction, and I do think it may come down to 34 cents. I don't know. This is all just probability, but for me, the RSI is still a little bit high here. So it could be that we could, exit out of this area here because the market looks pretty bullish after Bitcoin's recent correction. We could exit out of this area, come back to test 75, make our way out of here, right? We could do that. Or we could get a small little pump and come all the way back to test this area here of 33 cents, possibly 29 cents, to confirm our bull market run before we make out of here. But all in all, that is still healthy price action for Jewel because what does that form? That then forms an enormous, and I'm gonna change the color of this. I gotta change the color of this because I have to vision this for you guys. That then creates an enormous. Oh crap, that's not it. Excuse me, guys. That then creates, let's try this for the third time. Let's try this for the third time. That then creates an enormous up and okay. Let's put some sizzle on that. Let's put some sizzle on that. Let's put some sizzle on that. That then creates a ginormous cup and handle. And with cup and handle patterns, I mean, my goodness, we could be seeing again, this big battle area between 130 and 218 is an area that's going to be very exciting to watch. But for me, similar to Bitcoin's price action, and again, I call Jewel the BTC of DeFi kingdoms. And it's funny, if you look at Bitcoin's price action, it looks a lot. The top of Bitcoin looks a lot like the Jewel price. Again, in crypto, things match. So if the top of Bitcoin looks like the Jewel chart, and I'm going to just finish off by showing you the Bitcoin chart, this was the bearishness that we were not seeing when Jewel price went down, right? There's something I tweet where I say volume precedes price. So if you get this downwards volume, especially in this first section here, and price with the lower high, that gave us at least I don't know, a week to figure out that this was bearish action here. And you can even see it in the RSI as well, where we had this lower high here compared to the start of this price action here. But this looks a lot like Bitcoin. Bitcoin took a big dive, and Bitcoin's been recovering. Bitcoin is up 70%, right? And I'm going to switch over to Bitcoin really quickly to encapsulate this for you guys here. When you look at Bitcoin, the same pattern, okay? Jewel looks like Bitcoin. Jewel is the Bitcoin of the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem. You see this bearish pattern here on Bitcoin where we topped out. We had a 90% correction. And overall, Bitcoin has recovered. And Bitcoin is now back in where? This is what I call the F around and find out zone. This is the F around and find out zone for Bitcoin. The bull market for Bitcoin, this is the range that's going to confirm that for us. It's a very sluggish range, very sluggish range, very sluggish range. But if we're able to make our way out this range, even if we get rejected, come back down to test 37, which I don't think happens at all, we can confirm the bull market by exiting this area. Jewel is about 6 months behind Bitcoin. Okay? 6 months behind Bitcoin. So if we're looking at Jewel here, again, very similar price action. All we're doing and all we're doing is really chillaxing, sipping a cup of coffee, and watching Jewel make its way back to this heavy digestive confluence area. What's going to be the F around and find out zone for a lot of people coming in late and not understanding what they're looking at with price action. And so if we're making our way to the F around and find out zone from our current prices, what does that look like percentage-wise? This is not super accurate, but this is just a small guesstimation here. It's about another 769% run to the F around and find out zone. And when we look at things on the 3-day chart, let me just erase a lot of this nonsense that's here. When we look at this on the 3-day chart here, and we'll even look at the weekly chart. Let's do that. Let's go macro. Let's go macro. Let's look at the weekly chart here. On the weekly chart here, and I'm sorry for all this jambalaya that we have here on the weekly chart, we are oversold. Okay? We are oversold. And so based upon the fact that we are oversold, eventually Jewel is going to need to do what? Eventually, we're going to have a hard kind of crash down in order to make some higher movements here. And when we look at Jewel, we could be getting to the F around and find out zone before we get that nice dip in the long-term chart here of Jewel. But even when you look at the monthly, you can see, and we'll look at the RSI. On the monthly macro chart, this run for Jewel is just beginning. RSI is at 50. That is middle. RSI on the monthly can go as high as 99, and in crypto we see 99 and higher. And so that's my overall output on Jewel. The F around and find out zone is at $5. Another big area of a possible confluence of big correction area is this 298 area. But that's my thoughts on Jewel. We make it to the F around and find out zone. I will set some allocation, but we are about 6 months behind Bitcoin. Jewel is the Bitcoin of the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem, and so Jewel is going to be the leading indicator for some of what's happening. And as Jewel cools off, you're going to see other things in the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem go on some crazy runs. And DFK Gold is one of them. Tiers is one of them. And it's going to be amazing tracking some of these things over a period of time.
Wow. I'm kind of just trying to digest everything. It's fascinating to me, having not spent a lot of time in this, how much Jewel trades like a standard coin. Like, if you would have asked me before the stream started and had me take a lie detector test, I would have been like, oh no, it's different. And why is that? I had no idea. And so seeing this is, I think, in some ways reassuring to me. I mean, I think you want to see a project acting in normal ways. It's kind of the first thought that comes to mind. The second thought that comes to mind is, by all accounts, maybe this project should have died, and somehow like they crawled back out of the gutter, and didn't die and go away like most things would, with that long of a time period, and with the low lows. So that it's this was very fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me share.
All right. So, Neindorf, any thoughts, comments that you want to get to on what you're seeing here? What are your takeaways?
Yeah, no, I think I'm right there with you, Raph. I mean, we weathered that, and yeah, it was depressing, but I guess that was kind of at least me personally, that was my hero accumulation phase. All other coins kind of be damned, if you will. Um, it was a smart move, no, probably not, especially showing some of those crazy charts, how, 80% down, 80% down, 80% down. It's like, man, that kind of makes me feel like, what was I doing here still? But it's just, you know, and I guess that makes me have a couple of questions. One, with massive swings that we see in crypto, does from a macro standpoint, does that ever like tamp down and you have more like stock market level swings where it's a couple percent, 10% of the stock market's gigantic, right? Versus crypto is
Mhm.
like just fuel on the fire. And then I guess the second thing is how do you what is it about this project, in its hopeful success and how it's unique play into these potential like massive pumps you were talking about that could be revisited?
Yeah, so to the first question, there's a theory that I have with Bitcoin, and it's represented in my XRP analysis as well, right? Uh, and I'm just gonna briefly, throw it up because I erased it off of my Bitcoin chart, so I'll just share it with the XRP chart where it's in. The stock market has been alive for I think over 280 years. So that's been a long time, right? And in the first, let's say, 15 years of the stock market, there was the same volatility as the cryptocurrency market has right now.
Okay.
Maybe not the same. Crypto is a big enchilada, but overall, the reason why I bring that up is to say that there are a few metrics, or points that I follow within the cryptocurrency space, but also to any market, any ascending market, right? Any nascent market, that there are macro all-time highs and no corrections below those macro all-time highs. If you look at Bitcoin, you follow that macro pattern, it's there. Then there are percentage highs and diminishing returns, right? And so Bitcoin is up over 1,000,000%, right? The first time Bitcoin ran, it made a like a 79% run, 79,000% run. The most recent run Bitcoin did was only about, I don't know, a 700% run or something of that nature. This most recent run that Bitcoin is going to make is going to be diminishing returns. That's what happens, right? And so that's why the stock market has stabilized. Now, eventually, crypto is going to stabilize, right? You're not going to get as big of a returns, but you're not going to get as big of a correction. And within this third cycle or fourth cycle that we're coming into, we're seeing those things play out. And so you can expect 30 years from now for crypto volatility to be lower. But in this new age, just about 13, 14 years into this thing, you're gonna see parabolic movements. Early investors are the ones that are gonna benefit, but also hurt, because you don't know what's gonna come out and what's gonna be the sustainable projects. But that is my rebuttal to why we see the 10% moves in the equities market that are considered large moves, and why we get such large moves in crypto. It's going to stabilize over time, especially with regulations. And then once we start getting less speculation and more utility based psychology in the market. Now, when it comes to the DeFi Kingdom's ecosystem, I have this theory of the economic hardening theory, right? First and foremost, I am not a gamer. Okay, I sucked at games. I'm not good at Call of Duty. I'm not good at any of those things, right? But when it comes to where I am now as an adult, I want to play games, right? I want to enjoy my time. I want to be a big kid now, right? What commercial is that from, right? Look, being invested in crypto, doing my analysis of the different sectors in crypto, looking at DeFi Kingdoms, it was just encapsulating the best of what I saw that the crypto space had to offer, at least when it comes to combining blockchain technology, crypto gaming, DeFi, NFTs, and then you plug that all into a game. My goodness, right? Aside from the high APRs in the early days, that's what got me interested because I'm seeing people over here buying $1 million JPEGs, and I'm a utility guy, and I'm like, what the hell does this? What utility does this monkey have? Right? And I was like, I'm not getting into NFTs. Like, I know my XRPs, I know my Cardanos, right? I know my Algorand, right? I want nothing to do with NFTs. And then when I looked into DeFi Kingdoms, they were not only combining all the best of crypto, but they were having utility for these things. And then as an economics guy or a fundamental analysis guy, I saw that this it was going to take time for this thing to rise or to crash. And the mechanism within this game that I saw was not only the development, a possible AAA gaming opportunity that would develop with its ecosystem, but also too the overall fun aspect of this game, but also too the economic hardening, right? The math, some of the math behind what this team was doing, some of the adjustments, and just the big brains behind this project. I cannot keep up with some of these things that happen, but also too the decision making of this team when it comes to the blockchains that they're on.
Mhm.
AVAX. I can go into a 5 hour conversation about AVAX, the technology, the subnets, transactions, things of that nature, right? When you look at Clayton, right, tapping into the eastern part of the world, right? And just overall everything in development phase about this game being where we are 20x in development from where we were during the last bull market, the tokenomics, I mean, I can go on and on and on about my economic hardening theory, but also too the trajectory of gaming and where that is going. But lastly, to finish it off, I got my full confirmation of the crypto market having the gates open to not only flourish, but to not have any legal recourse. I'm telling you, Dreamer would not say it, but these court cases and litigations that are going on had a big part to do with holding back on some of the marketing and things of that nature. And so I'm a big XRP guy, and so I've been in litigation. I decided to get sued by the SEC along with 75,000 other people, and through litigation, the courts have shown us that not only XRP is not a security, but the courts and the litigation has opened the gates for crypto to be a flourishing industry, not only in the world, but more importantly, in the number one capital market in the world, which is the United States of America. And so, with all that, absolutely bullish in gaming, absolutely bullish in Jewel and the DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem, and the economic hardening theory. The more time you have on that, the better things get. And so I'm really excited about what's happening in gaming and DeFi Kingdoms.
A
All
quick,
right, I can't help it. I got to follow on.
keep going.
So how do you? We know there's two realms yet to be released. Now, what happens if one were to come out, and we know what happens, right? if they follow the
Mhm.
model. Now they don't have to follow the model, right? They don't have to have another Jade or Crystal. They could do something different. But say they did.
Mhm.
Say they released another 225 million coins into this ecosystem. How does
Mhm.
that play out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I just searched Jade here. Some reason when I'm on my desktop and I try to search my tweets, it doesn't do that. I think maybe I'm doing something wrong here. But I put out a recent tweet that, um, first of all, the rise of Serendale 2.0 is already gonna drive um, some demand into the ecosystem. But heading over to the new blockchain, um, you know, we all remember what happened with Crystal Veil when that launched, kind of in the back end of the bull market, right? And so they may not follow the same, and they don't have to follow the same, strategy that they went with. But all in all, it is going to be absolutely bonkers when they launch that new chain because look, I'm a macro investor. I don't do anything crazy within the game. I try to follow rules. The launch of a new blockchain, there are no rules. I am degenning and aping into whatever that new blockchain is, and everybody in the ecosystem feels that way. And so that's going to be just a period of mayhem and absolute demand. And so I'm excited for it.
All right.
All right. So this was an amazing podcast. I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and watch this twice, just to try to retain half of the knowledge that you shared with us today. The one thing I want to comment on that I couldn't agree more with is how the fit of crypto and the gaming space. And as a kind of a more of a practical gamer for years, the things that games wanted to do, and that some games have done despite not having trading mechanisms, is creating an ecosystem. And so I think that having a game built on top of a trading ecosystem already there, a DEX, a game on top of a DEX, that unlocks the possibility for super synergistic capabilities that are going to really start to attract Web2 gamers. I love the play to earn and pay to win philosophies being kind of balanced out in this space. So really excited about that, and thank you for the intros. And again, how do we tune in, and when do we catch you, Trade Room?
Yeah, for sure. So I stream on Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, on my YouTube. You can follow me on all my platforms, and now I do simulcast between YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.
All right,
So, you guys can follow me there as well.
love it. All right. Well, yeah, we will send the DeFi Kingdoms army that's not already out there uh, to go pump your content, because this is awesome, much appreciated, and I think this kind of analysis also helps us attract new users. And so for all of those of you who are gamers like Neindorf and I, let's promote this kind of material. I mean, this is exactly what people need to see to take us seriously in this space. So thank you very much for joining. This was awesome. Neindorf, any closing comments that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really appreciate this info as well because, I think what you were basically just saying, Raph, is we are probably pretty decent at understanding the game nature of this and not nearly as competent in the investment side of this crazy game slash investment slash way of life. It's kind of a unique thing, and I think I was hearing you talk about the stock market in its infancy. It makes me want to do more research, and maybe that's something we can come back to. But it kind of feels like until massive amounts of capital are applied to this market, and right now the crypto market is still tiny in comparison to the stock market. So I think maybe you got to have the big money needs to come in and dampen those price swings. Like, Raph, we were talking about that. you adding Jewel USDC, the more people that add Jewel USDC to the gardens, you kind of makes that trajectory, kind of slows it down a little bit, those massive swings.
Yeah, I think that I want to explore, and I don't know if the team will ever give us a straight answer, so it's probably just reckless speculation, which is what we're gonna do.
Absolutely.
But I really want to dive into probably next time in a part 2 with you, Trade Room. Um, how, what are the different ways that they could launch a new realm? And what are some of the things that they could kind of learn from the first couple experiences to extrapolate off of your kind of comment there, comment slash question, Neindorf, and then go into. So one of the things that we were trying to do the other day is come up with ways that what would be the most economically savvy ways for them to launch a new kingdom. But I am going to go ahead and leave the tease there. Because we gotta that's I want to dedicate like 2 hours to that one. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun.
That'd be awesome.
Trade Room, love this so much. Really appreciate you on. Any closing comments that you have for tonight?
No, I'm just gonna close it off by giving a big shout out to the community. We've been holding it down for this long. We've been having fun with each other. We've been communicating with each other. We've been all around the world, and we're just showing the best of what crypto does and how it can bring different global communities together. Big shout out to the team as well. But I'm gonna finish it off like they finished with the AM. Bullish.
Yeah.
Love that. Bullish. All right. Much appreciated, and thank you, of course, to all of our YouTube video watchers out there as well. And you can now catch this on YouTube audio, and I believe I've reactivated all of our audio streams. A request from a rejoining community member out there. So thank you, and